Kathy, how old is your house? It's probably around the same age as mine because we're not that far off neighborhood-wise. You're just talking about.
Built during the Civil War, like
Okay, so
1861, 63.
Couple decades on me.
It was funny. We had to have some pretty major electrical work done on the house a week ago, and the electrician was going over everything in the basement. Same thing. We have the big, Quincy granite basement, and he said, "How old is this house?" I said, "Well, the Historical Society goes back and forth between 1776 and 10 or something," and so he said, "Oh, no way. I live in an 1850 house, and this one's really old. They just like knocked the tree down, made it flat, and that's your sill." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's really not good when your electrician's in your basement telling you your house looks even older than their old house.
It just goes to show you they really have no clue because it's interesting. You can tell there are a bunch of additions in our house too, and so people like one of the inspectors walked through and was like, "That's like 40s era," and you could tell they did this. And I was like, "Wow, people lived in that tiny little part of the house for the first couple decades." Like, yep. But we're in that like Swedeville neighborhood, so I think it started off as kind of like folks who were working for the shovel biz, like
right.
Transitioning into home ownership kind of situation. So
yeah, our house was built by Oliver Day, he was, I believe, an attorney for the Ames company.
Is that the namesake of Day Street?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think we are only the 5th owners of the house.
Wow.
In its history.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's a house that I can see that one would sink into and settle into.
They would
really
say
cozy house.
Not very cozy right now, I'll tell you that much.
That's why I ended up buying these big, new Florida ceiling drapes because I'm like, oh, this is going to help block these drafty windows.
I need to do something like that.
It's funny, they replaced the windows. They're all double pane, but my dad has a contracting background, and he came in and he's like, when they replaced the windows, they left the space where the weights were. They didn't fill it in. So basically, he didn't resolve that.
Wow.
He's like, you'll have to at some point take it all off. And I'm like, these horsehair and mud walls will not be happy about that. So
we have the original windows in most of our windows.
Wow.
The glass is wavy. If storm windows, and there's insulation blown in the walls.
Okay.
But we really, I need to spend some time and money doing better weatherproofing of our house.
I just had Homeworks do an energy, that energy assessment. Of course, they can't always do a lot of different stuff because of the old homes, but they kind of reassure you and of what you can do, and I found it really helpful. And then they go over everything with you, and they'll come in with the plan to one of the additions on our houses. Our master bedroom, we know that was built in 1840 because it's written on the back of the door. Which is the attic. and so, but so they can go in there and do some insulation, where I had an energy audit done, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and they wouldn't even look at a house like this because they wouldn't do it. So that's improved. So it might be worth it. It's just time, and it's all free.
Yes. And that's the first, you got to do that in order if you want to qualify for the heat loan, to do anything.
Yeah.
So because I'm an old house with lots of little rooms, none of it applied. Couldn't get any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Couldn't do a mini split, nothing. So.
Okay, we were able to do the mini split project and get the heat loan and do that whole thing, but we went through our second energy audit to be able to get it. It was fascinating what they found on the second one that they didn't find on the first one. So it's really like, just goes to show you it's all about the eyes of who's looking at it in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, we did the audit when we first moved in here, but it's probably been 15 years since we did it. So, time for a second.
Yeah, I think the folks that are doing those for Mass Save now are, I don't know, more thorough, or at least they're open to some more things. I know when we did ours, they recommended some very I don't know, not impactful things to do. And so, yeah, I've been waiting with bated breath for the new DOE funded programs to be coming out, which
We'll see.
was really hoping they would do that in
I think you're going to be waiting
yeah.
and waiting
Yeah.
and waiting.
One second, I'm just trying to see if I'm going to have John allow him to talk. He hasn't been able to join as a panelist, and we need one more person for our quorum
He
to start.
gets
the
on, we
meeting.
can start. Awesome.
Yeah, one second. John, are you able to talk?
Unmute.
Yay.
I'm here.
I tried to move you up to a panelist, but it says that you declined.
Oh shoot! Should I start over?
No. I'll send you another. I'm going to send you a.
Okay. That.
There we go. Okay, great.
All right.
There were a handful of other folks that said that they would be joining us, but
Okay.
or that said that they were available for today, but are not here. So,
We can get started and they can read the minutes, and
yep,
we
yeah.
gotta be mindful of Mike's time and all of our time, really. So
Yes, for sure.
Um,
So, I think we're good to go. ECAT is here as well, but they don't need to be a panelist in order to be able to record. So,
okay.
I'm just going to hit record now, and
Recording in progress.
we can get going.
Okay, so it's February 5th, 2025 at 6:06 p.m. And we are starting the CCAP meeting. So to ensure we have a quorum, I'm going to say everybody's name and just respond with aye or yes, and we'll go from there. Before I do that, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by committee members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count toward quorum. All votes made during this meeting will be made by roll call. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is open it up. So, Sean.
I'll kick it off. The first item on the
No. You got to say you're here.
Oh, sorry. I was one track mind. I'm Sean Dugan, and I am present.
So excited.
Physically and maybe not mentally, but
Kathy.
Present.
Carolyn.
Present.
John. John?
Audio.
there we go.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome. And I'm Jen Stacy, and we are also joined tonight by Mike Staff from KLA Associates, who will be joining us to talk through one of the agenda items. Sean, I'll turn it over to you for the first item, which is a discussion about upcoming Easton Forward Advisory Group meeting on February 25th.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Can you just keep an eye on the participant tab while I'm talking, just to ensure if anyone shows up?
Absolutely.
Great. So the February 25th advisory group meeting that I had sent a notice out about is the second of 3 that we'll be hosting with KLA. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in the December group meeting. We got a lot of really great feedback that helped inform us getting to the second point, which is going to be a review of the draft goals, strategies, and actions, which we'll also see tonight, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next agenda item. Just to go over what to expect in the next advisory group meeting, we're going, like I said, we're going to be going over the draft goals, strategies, and actions with the full advisory group to give them more of an opportunity to be able to provide their feedback. We're going to have a layer of feedback that we'll give tonight at CCAP, but it'll be going back to the broader group. So we'll reiterate this again on the next agenda item, but this won't be your last time that you'll be able to see the goals, strategies, and actions. And what the broader group is going to do is they're going to go through this voting exercise where they'll go through and vote on the intent of the actions. And this will be done through a voting mechanism where you'll be able to, there's a voting board, and that will then lead to discussions on which actions should stay in the plan, which actions should be removed, which actions need language changes, stuff like that. And then we'll also identify opportunities and barriers for implementing these actions. And then we'll have a discussion about if there's anything that's missing that needs to be added. Since everyone will be in those breakout groups, similar to the breakout groups that we had in the first session, we'll have breakout groups again, except it'll just be virtual this time. And since everyone will be in their own individual group, they're going to leave the voting boards open. So after the meeting, in case there are people that wanted to share their thoughts on a focus area that was not the group that they were in. So if you were in the transportation and waste group, but you wanted to comment on buildings and energy, you'd have the opportunity to be able to do that after the meeting. Following the second advisory group meeting, KLA is going to take all that feedback from us tonight and from the full advisory group, and then make edits to the goal, strategies, and actions. And then we'll be conducting any last one-on-one interviews with individual staff or stakeholders that if there's any missing information that we need to be able to get to that final point to incorporate everyone's feedback in the final versions of the goal, strategies, and actions. And then the third meeting, the third advisory group meeting, that date hasn't been determined yet, but it's going to be later this spring, somewhere around April and May. And that'll focus on the implementation blueprints and tracking metrics. So we'll select a few priority actions from the plan, and then we'll write step-by-step guides for how to implement each of those, which will include identifying some technical and financial resources, as well as identifying equity considerations for each of the actions. And then we'll also confirm the metrics and system for tracking progress on action implementation, so we can measure our impact over time in the years ahead after we've started the implementation process of the plan. Any questions about what the next advisory group meeting is going to look like, or anything that you're curious about? Okay. We will have materials ahead of time that will help give you a little bit of a primer. I know that was something that we should have done last time, and we learned from last time to be able to get something for you to digest. And honestly, it's going to just be the goal, strategies, and actions that we are talking about tonight, and an incorporation of any feedback that comes out of tonight. And then that'll be part of the materials that you'll get before the next meeting on the 25th. One other thing about the next meeting is that if you didn't feel that you were properly placed in one of the groups, whether you were in transportation waste, building energy, if you didn't feel like you were in the right group and you want to change, just let me know by February 10th if you want to switch into a different group. If you feel like that is something that would be more appropriate for you to weigh in on. We wanted to give, not everyone's going to have that same opportunity, but members of CCAP as leaders of this process, we wanted to give them an opportunity, or us an opportunity, to be able to switch. So again, there was transportation and waste, community and natural resources, and then buildings and energy. So if you were in any one of those and you feel like you're better suited for a different group, let me know by next Monday, and I can send an email out about that as well, so you don't have to feverishly take notes.
That'd be great too for the folks who aren't here.
Yeah, definitely. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna you finish, then I'll just make one
I
little.
was going to make one last pitch to remind CCAP members that as the formally appointed, like the select board appointed body that's guiding the climate action planning process, I just wanted to remind members that it'd be great to have an elevated voice as part of this because of your participation in CCAP. So we just wanted to empower folks to be able to speak up and raise their voice about the work that we're doing here, because you do have more of a background than some of the other stakeholders that are part of the process. Jen, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add that I sent out a request for feedback, and this ties into some of the things Sean talked about, the changes we've made. But I just wanted to, thank folks for taking the time to provide some feedback. We took it seriously and implemented things where we could. And we had a retrospective with the KLA team, and I think it was a good, healthy process. So I just wanted to, again, thank folks and say we do take it seriously, because in the spirit of continuous improvement. So that's it.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Sean or me? Okay. Then we can move on to the second agenda item, and this is a presentation and discussion of the draft goals, strategies, and actions for the Easton Forward Climate Action Plan. So Mike is joining us tonight from KLA, and he'll be leading us through this discussion. And as a reminder, Sean already mentioned this, this is very draft. We're looking for feedback on the intent of the goals, strategies, and actions. So, and your feedback here is really important because it will really help kind of shape this next phase of what goes to the advisory committee. And just to reiterate, what will come out of this process is, we hope, a good mix of short and long-term goals, some aspirational goals, low-hanging fruit, and we recognize there are barriers. Everyone is aware of the budget situation. There's bandwidth issues. There's things we have to contend with, but I kind of want us to put those aside until later when we talk about implementation. Let's bring the ideas out now and focus on the intent of what we're trying to do here, and we'll get into the other, weeds of it later. Tonight we may disagree on some things, but we do need to come to a consensus for edits that we ask KLA to make, so they can go with a clean slate of ideas, goals, actions, and strategies to the meeting on the 25th. And we can't keep Mike all night, so we got to stay on focus on topic. If we start to drift, I will just, we'll parking lot things and bring them back for another time to figure out how to address anything around clarity or deep discussion. And he'll be here for 30-ish minutes. So last thing is...
Whatever you need.
Thank you. The last thing is CCAP is seeing this first because you are leading the climate action planning process. So you'll have another chance to weigh in at the advisory meeting on February 25th. So again, we're hammering that home because we don't want anybody to panic and think that this is, a binding point at all. It is an important point, but it is not a situation where we're bound to anything at this point. So more opportunity to weigh in and shape this. With that, it's 6:16. I'm going to turn it over to Mike. And Mike, I am going to try to keep it on time. I'll kind of give you a midpoint check, and then we can see where we are as we hit like 5 minutes left. So just be mindful of your time.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for me before I turn it over to Mike? Okay, then this is probably what everybody's waiting to hear about. So go ahead, Mike.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Let's see. Share. Maybe as I pull these up, it is probably not very time efficient for me to just start reading through these. So really maybe where I want to start is you guys hopefully got the message from Sean a couple days ago and maybe have gone through a few of these. So our process was to take all the discussion from the first advisory group meeting and think, okay, well, we have, the goals and strategies laid out to, essentially make sure that all of the big pieces, all the big kind of levers that need to be pulled on in some, one way or another to have the level of impact that we want to hit, or, hit all the greenhouse gas sources, hit the major aspects of resiliency, that we have goals and strategies for each one of those. And then, really the individual actions come from the discussion. There are a few ones here that are noted in red, which were ones where, we felt like there's things that still need to be maybe unpacked here. For example, this first one, like, we know we need to do something here. But, what exactly is the right mechanism for Easton, right? Is it some kind of incentive? Is it more education, or, what is really going to be the thing that, makes this a thing that feels like you all can implement? So just a little bit of a quick framing in terms of what you see here. But maybe I will, again, before I just start going through and reading them, did folks have a chance to read through these to begin with, and any that you all want to raise and make sure that we cover right off the bat?
Are you going to take these like kind of goal by goal of like opportunity to comment and then move on? Is that?
We can certainly start with buildings and energy. Makes sense. You can go through them that way. But really, if anybody has any burning things, I'm happy to jump around. There's not too many pages here to get lost.
Mike, the statement up top about Easton operates using 100% renewable energy, I love that, but what do we call it? What is that? Is that a aspirational goal or a long-term thing?
Aspirational goal, sort of the vision that sort of helped, like, okay, this is ultimately where we want to get to.
Okay. Perfect. Just wanted to make sure I understand, and then these are the pieces that we'll be considering to get us there.
Exactly. Vision statement.
Perfect.
We're a small group, so maybe we don't have to raise our hands quite so much.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with people just speaking.
So for 1.1.A, for example, the hold for the action directly encouraging residents. So is that because I was just trying to understand the red. It means that it has to be more fully developed to figure out what that looks like. Okay.
Yes. So we were open to additional ideas. I mean, we can bring either to that next discussion, or if you all have suggestions on what you think should be here right now. Like, oh, we know we can. I mean, it sounds like we're probably not like adding another incentive program on top of what Mass Save and other things.
Can I make a recommendation as we head into the advisory committee? And if this group doesn't have anything that like fleshes out what that could look like, I think it'd be worthwhile to bring that to the meeting on the 25th, but it'd be really good to have some examples of what other towns are doing to anchor the conversation, because the Buildings and Energy group went a little freeform last time, and I think we could benefit from being like, here are a couple of examples of what other groups, what other municipalities have done that we think, would be of interest for you to hear about. And I think that'd be valuable.
So when I was in the community and natural resources one, so we were talking about sort of community capacity, right, in there. And one of the things that I think it ended up on a Post-it as opposed to in our discussion was, I know that there's some towns that have been doing like citizen ambassadors, where if they've gone ahead and done a retrofit or, decided to do a heat pump or any of those types of things, that it's somebody in the town who would talk to a fellow resident about the process and how that ends up working. So I don't know if there was some cross-pollination in the two different groups. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I don't know if that's where that post-it note made it over here, but
okay. Yeah.
this is
We have the discussion in the energy group too, so definitely on the same page there.
yeah.
Okay.
Carolyn, does this capture what came up in your discussion?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was it. I think it's a little bit sexier, actually.
I just want to note that Bill joined us just now, so we now have a sixth member.
Hey, do we need Bill to say he's here?
Yes.
Okay, Bill, as soon as you have a chance, can you? You're muted.
There we go. Sorry, I had it on. I think I had it muted, guys. Can you hear me okay?
We gotcha,
Yep, you're
yeah.
good.
All right. Sorry about that. Sorry I'm so late.
That's okay.
No problem. Just to catch you up, we're on agenda item number 2. So Mike is walking us through the goals, strategies, and the components we'll be looking at on the meeting on the 25th.
Okay.
Just reiterate what I already said. We're really, this meeting is to look at these, weigh in, give some feedback, kind of come to consensus about what we're going to be bringing on the 25th, but it's not a final goal setting session at all. There are more opportunities for that. So the purpose for us today is to get this through to the next phase with general consensus. And again, there could be more thrashing on the details over the next couple meetings where we'll have opportunities to keep weighing in.
Okie dokie. Thank
And
you.
we'll deal with the barriers like cost and staffing and all those things later. That kind of comes when we start thinking about feasibility and implementation. So we can think a little more pie in the sky, big ideas, and then we'll have to hone in later. So that's all I'll add. And if Mike or Sean want to say anything else.
You covered it.
We're good here.
Back to you, Mike.
Okay. Well, there's no other sort of burning questions that you all have. Maybe I will just sort of go through them in order and try to highlight the ones where we know that there is some additional work to be done, or just thought to go into the initial draft. So one that came up was CPACE financing. The town has enabled this, which is awesome. It's a huge step. How much are people using it? How much are businesses even aware of it? And just trying to think like, okay, there's a good tool there, and let's figure out how to really put it to use. I don't know that anybody necessarily on this call has ideas on that, but it's something that maybe we can dig into more and figure out like, okay, well, what are the commercial facilities? What would bring them to the table more, or at least make them aware of it if they're not?
Yeah, I think part of it is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is this something that we could work with, like, I know this isn't gonna capture all the businesses, but can we work with like oh my God, the group that does the permitting, the building permit group, like when they get a request to just share information around things like this. I know I'm talking more implementation, but that could be one approach.
Yeah, I was going to say communication, and that is one of the communication tools is that our design review team, when a development comes before the town, they meet with town permitting staff, and this could be something that we could use as a tool to let them know, and add that part of our checklist as we're meeting with project proponents.
Yeah. Could be that, could be Chamber of Commerce, trying to get out more proactively and get to folks before they've got an idea that they want to break ground on a project, like know that there's financing available to help them do it. So beyond that, we've got education actions. We just went over a bit. Then moving from the efficiency side more to expanding renewable energy. Really looking at like, okay, where are there opportunities for more solar and clean energy infrastructure in appropriate places? So all of these are sort of geared towards trying to make sure that we're putting in as much renewables locally as possible, but avoiding any kind of leveling forest to do it, putting it in the built environment wherever we can, making it easier for folks to get at these things, maybe with a solarized campaign or something like that to do some bulk purchasing and bring down the value or the cost of these things. One big one that I also want to highlight is just the community choice aggregation option, is just making sure that there are more impactful opportunities there for things that actually invest in renewable development in New England, if not Massachusetts specifically. So there's lots of options there. So thinking ahead to when that contract is going to be up.
I think that's a good one. That contract is actually going to be up this year. Our current contract runs through November of 2025, and so right now we do have a green option, but I don't think we have a 100% renewable option. And I think part of it is going to be increased communications. A lot of these are corrected by having increased communication or implemented with increased communication. And so I think right now the difference between the basic rate and the green rate is very minimal in terms of the kilowatts per hour. So I think we'll have to do a better job on the town side to make sure that folks know that this option is available to them. But in addition to going with the 100% renewable and local option.
Yep. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna
Please go back and see if anybody had any like questions on that or anything that felt was missing. Any strong reactions?
I just had the question with regards to the potential locations for larger solar. Is that the idea that maybe I don't have great solar, but my neighbors around me may, and we could collaborate in terms of doing something? Or
that's a great idea. So we're actually making more of a community solar program, and I think there was going to be some, well, of course, everything now a little bit up in the air, but I know Massachusetts did get a significant Solar for All grant that was going to be trying to build more of those community solar programs. So that is possible. That could be definitely a clarification to make or have that nuance in there. But I think we were also thinking about like where are there parking lots that could be good candidates for covered parking. I guess similar to what Stonehill College has, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before Mike moves on? Okay.
Okay, so under resilient and healthy communities, So we got our vision statement here. Easton Community is healthy, safe, prepared for climate impacts through equitable access to critical resources. So a lot there to make sure we're covering all the bases. You know, we always want to make sure critical infrastructure is covered, and I think some of this is being explored probably a little bit more in MVP 2.0, and maybe there's some opportunities to cross-pollinate there with some specifics. I know that we recognize that some of it, like particularly this first one, is pretty high level, and so the extent that we can get like some actual oh, we really need to do this. I think that would be great if we can get those things in there, and then those become much more clear wins once it's in, instead of just like a generic, like, yes, get all the things.
Yeah, on that one in particular too, we have some progress already made that I think we can think about how we communicate it, so folks understand when there's a disruption, how it ties back to this, strategic effort to, build resiliency into our community infrastructure. So there's a communications component to it, I guess is what I'm saying there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question with regards to the retrofitting, well, not the collaborating of underground. I lived in Guam, so every time a typhoon came through, they put everything underground. Eventually it happened, but we don't necessarily have that here. And then I just had a lot of electrical work done on this house, and they still just tied a wire like across the road and hooked it on, and it's right near, these hemlocks that are. So is there a way to have the utilities like do an audit of areas that are higher, higher risk, or it just doesn't seem to make sense? I mean, we've seen them tie off to dead trees. I just don't understand a lot of the. It just seems like bubblegum and spit to me, and I don't know how we're moving forward to retrofit. So didn't know if that was part of it in terms of that partnership, or how's that work?
Yeah, that's a really good observation, Phil. And I think when I look at it, I feel like they're being strategic about it is definitely one thing. I mean, I would guess that Eversource probably has some idea of where these things can be useful if there are problem areas, or really critical things that you don't want to be disrupted. So I think maybe this collaboration piece could be refined a little bit more to really thinking strategically about where it makes sense to do, rather than if they end up having to tie in a bunch of stuff and run lines across the street anyways, it's very expensive. So maybe that's not the right neighborhood to be focused on.
Can I just put my 2 cents worth in first? It's National Grid is our supplier, Eversource is Cape Cod. But so in the town of Easton, if you drive up and down Depot Street up towards past Five Corners, going up towards Target, if you look at the top of the utility poles, and if you look at the top of the Quanticut, you'll notice that the wiring is different than any other part of Easton. So that type of wiring system is created so you don't lose power. So what they do is, if you look at the top, you'll see like a triple wire with a bracket on top of those poles. And that area of Easton does not lose power. I know they don't do it. There's no records of that, but I sort of know that because I developed so much in the town of Easton. And the new subdivision that I'm putting in right now, you guys all live in Easton. I'm sure you've lost power in the last 2 years. This subdivision's never lost power. So it's because of that type of wiring that they do, the overhead. To do underground in the town of Easton, my house down in Florida is on Lombok Key. The island is 10 miles long. That was $66 million just to do that road. To do the town of Easton, I'm sure there's federal monies in there, but you're in the hundreds of millions of dollars to go underground in the town of Easton. The cost would be, I just can't even imagine what it would be to each person in the town of Easton. But this overhead system it works. So that area of Easton never loses power because it's set up where trees can fall on it and they get hung up on it and then you clear them off. They don't take the lines down. Wind doesn't take them down, trees don't take them down, and there's special poles that don't snap. So you might want to look into that.
Thanks, Bill. That's a really good recommendation to
Point
have
that.
maybe a transition path because, as you point out, the aspirational goal might be very not tangible at the moment, but what you're suggesting may be a good intermediary.
Just to
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think the mechanism of undergrounding, that doesn't matter so much as what's the effect. So if we can achieve the same thing with these stronger lines or something like that. So, that is a great recommendation that we can implement immediately before the meeting on the 25th is.
Okay, I'll get you guys what it's called. I just don't, I'm just right now, I'm 67 years old, so the memory's gone. So I will, Sean, I'll get you what it's called.
That'd be great.
All right.
Yeah, I like the idea, Mike, you just said of rewording that to focus on the intent and then presenting the options that can be thought out. So that's great.
Thanks, Bill.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. I know one that we sort of left open-ended and realized there may be some more thought to put into it was, there was identified a need to do something about improving the quality and sustainability of rental units, that maybe there was some tie-in with the Affordable Housing Trust or some other mechanism there than again, trying to just come up with an incentive to have it happen. And I don't know if that triggers any thoughts from this group in terms of is there a good mechanism to try to get at that with?
Have you seen other towns do this? I know I always go back to the benchmarking thing and it's like my obsession point, but if you have any examples of other towns doing things that have worked, I'd be really curious to hear about that. I know this is a really tough spot and a huge opportunity, but it's really hard to, you can't force it. So
Right. It's a tough spot. One of the things that we've been suggesting people get on the plan, I don't know how many people have actually gotten them off the ground yet, is more energy efficiency labeling. So some way that at least people could understand, okay, I'm renting this place. What is the last 3 years worth of bills added up to? So those kinds of things to it. Maybe that incentivizes a property owner to invest in it a bit more if they're going to, get better rentals out of it. But, yeah, it is a tough one.
And do we have anybody who is a landlord in that group?
Me.
I don't know off the top of my head.
But you
Am I
were-
a landlord
I
of
think you were in the
rental
other one. I think you were in the buildings and energy, right? Which one are we in right now? We're community?
This is community.
Yeah, okay. So Bill, as a landlord, you weren't in this group, but as a landlord reading this, what's your reaction?
It's tough because I have some older properties in Easton, and the major problem we have in Easton right now is land. That's and the cost of land. That's the very difficult part here, as we all know. And anybody who's been in the town has seen what's happened with the town with pricing. House lots are now $400,000 to $600,000, and there's just there's no land to buy any. It's all gone, unfortunately. But I don't have that many properties left. I used to have probably like 20 rental units in the town of Easton. I just have all mixed because some are older, some are newer, and some of them are just they're ready to be torn down, some of them, unfortunately. But it's just doing what we're talking about here with some of the properties. It's some of them are around wetlands, so you can't do any of this because they're right up against the wetlands line.
I think this question is more aimed at what kind of incentives
Oh,
possibly could get you to, for example, think about window improvements or energy systems upgrades that
Yeah,
often
yeah. I got you. Well, isn't that right now, that's out there right now, isn't it, with the, who has it out right now? Is it, Mass Save aren't they the ones with the insulation in the windows, et cetera, of the state?
Yeah, then there is that incentive there. I guess the question is landlords often don't use it because they, don't bear the cost of energy if they're passing it, if their tenants are responsible for the utilities. So
Yeah, yeah.
the motivation's not there. And I think the intent here is to try to figure out how you either incentivize it or create a mechanism to kind of like push it in that direction.
Yeah, well, there's nothing right now to the landlords is really that I know of. Being a landlord, nobody's come knocking on my doors to improve my property, so I just do it myself.
Yeah.
Go replace the windows, replace the siding, go with, like this types of siding out right now which is great. They have insulated siding. Somebody finally invented a great product. So it's not a heavy insulation, but it's enough to where it really helps the home. Because you have a continuous insulation around the home instead of having the 2x4s uninsulated, et cetera. So you have, all the vinyl siding companies now have a type of insulation that has that on it, but nobody's coming to the landlords with anything, with any type of incentives, nothing.
And then we could even start with the low-hanging fruit of some kind of information campaign. And I think there's another element, as I heard you talking, you have a far more advanced understanding of construction and the design and construction of a home than maybe a lot of other landlords do. So it feels like we could start with communication there around what's available and then think about how we could go stronger on this one. But
Well, that's why I got on the board, is because I'm very involved with the town. I'm raising my kids here, my grandkids here. I want you guys to, what I learned over being a builder for 42 years, I want you guys to bounce stuff off of me to see if I can in any way help input things like that. That's why I wanted to be on this here, is to see if I can help out the town in any way. So hopefully I can. So
I think it'd be great for you to, if we do that that campaign around what information would be good to a landlord, like that would be huge as a starting point. So I think that'd be a great role for you if you're interested in doing it, as we talk about implementation.
Well, I will try.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I would hope somebody to help, because I am still building my subdivision.
Oh yeah. We'll make sure that no one is tasked with anything beyond their capacity. But just thinking about sharing your expertise, I think that'd be a great space. So, thank you.
Yeah, I just wish there was somebody I could talk to at a state level. I don't even know who to contact, because I've never had anybody reach out to me.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but maybe we can follow up on that after about that.
Yeah, and we can look into it somewhere as well. I feel like I did see something, that the state is trying to do something that is renter focused. So maybe there's something else we can build on.
So
Okay.
at the Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting in November, we had Homeworks come and do a presentation, and there is an initiative coming out of Mass Saves for, I'm just looking at our minutes, for, apartment complexes 1 to 10 units or condos. So there might be something coming out from there that might be able to be pushed. And so, again, they said something about it being in the beginning of the calendar year that stuff gets published. I don't think we've heard anything else about it, but there is something going on there.
Oh, that'd be great. So we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. Like they'd almost may have a toolkit that we can,
Especially if it's through Mass Save, so that kind of information you get to the landlords like Bill to say, hey, did you know Mass Saves is doing this, and and then as well as trying to frame it of how it can be a partnership, because if the tenant is actually the one paying the utilities, then they have an interest. And of course, the landlord has an interest in improving their property, and there's their way to create a partnership. So they understood that this was something that was really needed, and they're trying to develop something.
I think you hit it right on the nail, is because that's what happens. The landlord owns the property and the tenant's the one who's paying the
Yeah.
bills.
Mhm.
So on this, oh, sorry, Bill.
Okay.
On this one, Mike, my recommendation would be that we change the wording slightly, because I don't think we'd be developing the incentive program,
Yeah.
but we might be thinking about another action that our town is doing, maybe leveraging existing programs, communicating them, something, just so folks don't think we're like actually building this out. But, we may have to think about how to package it, but if what Carolyn is saying exists, that this might be a lot easier than we're realizing.
Absolutely.
Any more comments on that one, or that's a good discussion? Okay.
Okay. We've got a number of things that are geared towards emergency preparedness, making sure that folks are aware of resources. It's a lot of education type actions that are there. These are pretty common that we try to get into these plans. Especially if there are additional resources that come out of other actions in the plan, making sure that those get integrated into these kind of programs, that people know how to get in touch with resources when they need them.
Awesome. I guys want to flag we are at the 30-minute mark in this discussion. I think we can let it go comfortably for about another 15 minutes or so, if that works for you.
Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
So move on to natural resources. The vision statement there: Easton protects and enhances and preserves natural resources by prioritizing conservation and stormwater management. So the first goal there: trees, open space, landscaping are sustainably managed to enhance climate resilience. And yeah, a lot more definitely on education in all of these, making sure that homeowners are thinking about what they maybe could be doing for thinking about wildfire risk. That is a new risk that I don't think we have dealt with so much until this past summer, when it really I think became much more relevant for Massachusetts. And I think a lot of these things could be implemented together. Education on what kinds of plants, what kinds of landscaping, where to put it, how to minimize fire risk, those sorts of things. Could really all be implemented in some fashion together. Of course, the town street tree inventory and management plan is always a good thing to make sure you're looking at long-term threats to keeping a healthy crop of public trees going, and particularly shading streets, those kinds of things. You can prioritize those well. We did have an action in here for potentially looking at a tree bylaw, although we know that is not a late action to jump into. There are some examples out there. Town of Wellesley is one that I know was able to do this. Cambridge and other folks have had some success on various implementations of this, but I think we flag it just because we know this is potentially a difficult one or contentious one to move forward, and maybe there's a better way to frame it from the beginning to stimulate the right discussion.
John, is there any, does the Conservation Commission have any kind of stance on this when it comes to things that are brought before them? Oh, you're muted, my friend.
I don't know. Al Benson was supposed to be here. He's on the Concom. I don't know that for sure at this point. I just know that we don't have a tree bylaw or anything related to that on the books.
Okay.
So that's why we're considering this as an option. But
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Can we, we'll add that to our list to ask him then and check in on that. I want to make sure we're not redundant or if there's already language around that, we could start there.
Yeah.
I just want to bring up that, I went to the Easton Sustainability Night at Quissit House, and some of the things that was discussed in that one presentation that was provided was, just sort of these obstacles that happen for folks feeling like it gets to be expensive for somebody. And I had to have 2 trees cut down because they died and they're on the street. But I've been doing all this research of what's the best kind of tree for me to put out there, because it's going to get salt and it's going to get the pollution. And I'm wondering if there are just some kind of ways that we could provide those resources to folks, whether it's a bylaw or otherwise. So that could be part of, yes, that education campaign, but like make it user friendly. And I know I'm talking from a committee that's supposed to try to get our arms around this, but it's always so overwhelming for 4 to 5 people. But anyway, I think that's kind of part of it, that, I'm not quite sure how a bylaw would work, but, I heard plenty of voices when I was there about people just feeling like this, they really appreciate our environment here, but things just tend to be so hard to get done. And it would be great if we could figure out a way to frame that so it's kind of more of a partnership than a law. I don't know.
That's a really important point, because I agree there's a lot of chatter about the restrictions that come with dealing with the Conservation Commission, which we all know a lot of times we may understand those kinds of things, but I think there's, not full understanding from someone going through that process of why it's structured that way. So it's a super important point.
Yeah, I think we want to incentivize positive things like this versus mandating and making it more difficult to be able to do business with the town. So any way that we can provide that incentive structure is all the better.
And it could just be, somehow or another, and we can find those resources, but, Blue Hills or whatever the name of the nursery is down Bay Road there, like what are some of the local resources that are here to make it easier to find, so I don't have to drive all the way to Worcester to find the tree that I think is supposed to be on the corner of my property to help stay there. So again, I understand this is kind of interactive. So when I look at an education campaign, it's also one to those to make it easier to buy them.
You also have to take into regards the soils in Easton.
Yeah.
So be very careful. They've tried to do this before I was on the Conservation Commission, but you have to be very careful with the different soils, wet soils, tight soils, etc., sandy soils. If you go out and you pick like 3 or 4 trees that only do well in well draining soils, and you have people going into areas and planting these trees and they all die, and the people paid for that, you're going to have some very upset people. So there's so many different soils in the town of Easton and water tables. So you got to be, it's not such an easy thing that you're looking at right here. That's my background with planting so many trees in this town. It's especially like right now, you see all the trees that dying in Easton, the ash tree. You notice if you look all around Easton, that the bug that's in them right now is killing off all the ash. They're all dead. And it's unfortunate, but we got to think about the soils when we go picking out trees that are going in these areas.
Yeah, and that's where
When I think of, am I on?
Yep, you're good.
Wildfires, I'm not thinking of like from property to property, the fire, spreading. I'm thinking of these big swaths of forest that the town has. Like behind my house, I'm abutted to the power lines and stuff. And I mean, that's a big stretch of continuous, there could be a lot of fuel out there for, a real dry season to kind of get out of hand. Not so much like, these ornamental things on the street and in people's yards and stuff. It's really I think the danger would be in the wilds, the kind of.
You're bringing an interesting point. I think actually the danger is probably in that buffer zone where that area may be hard to manage because there's a lot of resourcing that would go into wildfire mitigation there.
Oh yeah, no.
But on the buffer zone between those large swaths and housing, kind of like we saw in Los Angeles where it moved into a residential area, like I think avoiding that would be, could be a significant focus and goal, and incentivizes homeowners to be like, okay, this is the thing I can do to help contain that from getting to that point. So we had to prioritize it. I think it would be that like edge folks as far as outreach and focus on understanding the role they can play in helping to contain it.
Yep.
And there's a bigger question around what we could actually do in our 1/3 of land area in Easton that is forested. So I don't know we have a path for that. I don't know that forestry management has been a big thing here because it traditionally hasn't been, but maybe that's where the tree inventory can help us also hone in on higher risk areas and then explore future opportunities we haven't even thought of in that space. So
yeah, right. It's just, there's just big chunks of forests, and tried walking through there, and like you're stepping over dead stuff left and right.
Yeah.
Like Bill mentioned, all the dead wood that's still standing up there, and it's all fuel ready to go.
So maybe we can make note of that as part of the tree inventory of understanding how to manage that resource and then tie that to this piece, and I think they're related and complement each other. We might just need to dig down a little bit. Maybe that can be a topic this group explores on the 25th.
Absolutely. The thing that popped in my head was maybe an inventory of management of the open spaces, like how much of this is state's responsibility, how much of this is utility right away, like those kinds of things. That could be a good place to start that conversation and think about who would want to see.
Awesome. Good suggestion there. Okay, we got about like 5 minutes.
Okay. And of course, this is the one.
The only thing I'd say about the bylaws, we just might want to be careful about the word bylaw and may want to put like guidance, bylaw, give some options there. Just speaking to Sean's point, I'm not trying to minimize the importance of it, but I do worry that the perception of Easton being unfriendly to folks trying to improve their properties or, do business here. So trying to find that balance without minimizing it. That's my only thought there.
Well, Jim, maybe that is a good segue to the first red one that we have here, which was initially worded as a bylaw amendment, and maybe we need to go something lighter in terms of getting more EV infrastructure in from the get-go.
Maybe hold for a zoning bylaw amendment that encourages development projects. I don't know if that would have enough teeth to be able to make them include the infrastructure, but yeah, I'd want to talk to the
Some way we can even incentivize it too, or find mechanisms that are incentivizing it.
Are you guys talking about right now 1.1C?
Yep.
Yes.
So that's a building code right now. That's the new stretch code. All houses as of July 1st have to have EV charging stations in the homes.
Okay, that's for new
All new
construction.
Yes, all new construction. Yep.
Okay, check that box.
Okay. Very good. This next one on facilitating a carpool matching program, I think the challenge here was folks were like, well, is this the school's thing?
Yeah, we need buy-in from the school department, and I know that that's something that Tacey from KLA was trying to facilitate a conversation with us and the school department to explore school-related items on all of the goals, strategies, and actions, and this is one of them. They would obviously have to have significant buy-in in order to make this possible.
It's a bummer because we have buses as a resource, but I took my kids off of them because it was a horrific experience. So I feel like if more parents were taking the bus, that would be the no-brainer. More children were taking the bus, that'd be the no-brainer solution. I'd happily pay for it, but my kiddos' quality of life was not good for 2 years. We had that a year, like most recently. So I don't know if that's a thing we could flag. I mean, the schools are aware of this, and I don't know what the solution is because we can't afford to have bus monitors. But I feel like in some ways, it feels like we're shifting to more and more parents driving, and that's, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, so we'll have that conversation with the schools and see, and hopefully that'll be prior to the 25th, so we can have a more robust conversation about what might be an option to inch us in that direction to address the congestion over at Spooner Street.
Yeah, even just something that's maybe looking at scheduling or something that staggers things differently might be another fix. So I think calling it carpool matching, but maybe it's more around strategies to reduce the impact of and create guidance or a framework or something.
Yeah.
It is definitely a problem, though. Anybody who has been in those lines knows that it's a lot of idling time and traffic.
Yep. Okay, maybe the last one that we'll have time for, I'll just note that we do have some holds there for places to integrate things that may be coming from the master plan, but I think this 2.1b is probably one that is worth looking at. Just, we identified a need for more dense development where appropriate, and thinking about overlay district as a good mechanism for doing that. I don't know that if there were specific things that we know is deficient about sort of the districts that already exist, or like is there a more specific, like slightly level up version that we want to try to get to?
Yeah, I think this is an important one to have in. I know that that's a priority to be able to leverage these districts that have the infrastructure and are primed for this type of development. So I think that'll definitely be an important one to keep in there.
I agree.
I couldn't be more in agreement with that, Sean. You have areas in town that have sewer, and you're not taking advantage of it. It's you see other towns that surround us, like Canton, all the towns that have sewer. In those areas, when you have sewer, you're set up there for housing, smart growth housing. It's right there, guys. That's what the benefit of sewer is, and we really don't seem like we're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, so that'll be important to keep in there. And then I see, so 2.1.c, we'll have, that'll obviously, as that master plan update continues on, there's going to be a public engagement session in early March. So we should gain some more clarity at that point. But yeah. Then the schools, the composting and recycling, will have that'll be part of the discussion that we would be having with them surrounding things like composting or recycling pilot programs.
Yeah, nothing else in there stood out to me as controversial or. So does anybody have any closing comments or thoughts or questions before we talk about some next steps for getting this ready before the 25th? So Mike, what is you KLA team will take this back and make some revisions and then send this to CCAP to, and we'll use that. You're sending it and folks saying here, I sign off on this, or these are the changes, and we can't debate it obviously through email because it's a violation of open meeting law. But would you want folks to send their sign off or comments to me directly, and I can share them by a certain point in time? We're going to be nudging folks to just saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and probably not soliciting for major comment because we had that opportunity tonight. But
Right. Yeah, that sounds good. Have them send it to you if there's anything that is like critical to make sure that we get in before it goes out to the wider group, because I know time will be of the essence because we want to get it out to them very quickly. So I mean, these should be quick for us to turn around. I'd say easily by the end of the week.
Awesome. So as soon as you have that, Sean and I can communicate to the full committee, send that out, just say to folks, this was agreed upon during the call. If you have any significant changes, let me know, but otherwise we're looking for sign off to go on the 25th, and you will have opportunity to continue to weigh in on the evolution of anything in here. This is just to get us to the point where we can present it on the 25th and open up the discussion. I see Carolyn's hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I know that that there's been kind of a works along the way between EST and Concom and then talking to Black Earth, but trying to find a location for leaf collection in the town. It actually came up in the Sustainable Easton discussion that's not a service that's available, but I don't see anything about that leaf pickup, and that's really important. Is that what I see there's a campaign on it, but people don't even know where to put their leaves, and then that's a problem for water as well as proper disposal. So I don't see it in here. I was wondering what happened. Can we add that to the hold action for composting and recycling in schools, and then leaf collection? Or
I would be okay with adding another line and just saying hold for, point on leaf collection so it doesn't get lost in the discussion on recycling and compost. And then we don't have to sign off on it as a group. We're just giving it its blessing to go to the meeting on the 25th.
Yeah, no, it's easy to do within I mean, going back to some of the earlier conversations that we had with Public Works, it seemed like that was just like, no, we don't have anywhere to do it. But if there is a conversation that we can help nudge along here, then yeah, absolutely, it should be in there.
Before we wrap, did anyone have any other points that they felt were missing, or anything that strong reaction to that we need to discuss now? Otherwise, we're gonna let Mike go and get this back so we can sign off on it.
Jen, you mentioned the benchmark comment a few times.
Yeah.
Can we see other towns' reports and stuff? Because we're not the first town to do this, and KLA has done this for many other towns. We seem like we're kind of going into this kind of blind, in a sense that where's the framework that we're kind of basing this off of?
So, Mike, could you recommend maybe 2 or 3 reports that you guys have done for towns that are most comparable to Easton?
Yep.
And send them with the revised document, and we'll ask folks to review that in advance of the 25th, because I think it's important to build on your point, John. We want to make sure that members of this committee are empowered to take a bit more of a leadership role within these groups. And I think you're bringing up a really good point that being armed with more information around examples would be helpful. So I think those 2 or 3 reports, if all the members agree to review them in advance, I think that would scratch the itch of what you're asking for, right?
Scratch the itch, yep.
Okay.
We can easily do that.
Awesome.
I'll mention that we did have a handful that were included in the RFP process that were comparable, that KLA had included. I think it was Lexington, Concord, Danvers, Shrewsbury. They had included those plans as part of their submittal. So we did we did as a committee receive those, and they're somewhere in the packet. So, but it's good to recirculate them just so folks have them top of mind and fresh. But
And
also,
were those the best benchmark communities, or were those KLA's best examples of reports? Because there's a difference there too that I think we want to make sure we capture.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference. I mean, other ones that aren't on that list that I could think of, Needham, Plymouth. Those are at least the two that immediately jump to mind.
Okay. Yeah, and I think one of them might be even. So yeah, if you could think of, you guys would have a good idea after doing the demographic and other analysis of our towns, what makes the most sense for like the closest comparison options.
Mike, would it be accurate to say that not every plan is going to be exactly the same because of community values and different makeups? So like, I know that it won't be apples to apples, so maybe including that as a caveat and when you send them over, just so we can get that context and know that it's not going to be apples to apples. But what are the important takeaways that we should be taking from these relatively comparable communities that we're comparing?
That's a great point. Okay. Anything else before we wrap this item? Okay, then if there's not, I think we have a game plan for moving forward. Mike, I want to thank you for walking us through that. That was very comprehensive, and I think it sets a good stage for what we can expect on the 25th as we work through our groups and participate in those discussions. So thank you for being here tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing the materials you sent over. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you will see it soon. And you don't need me for this next item. That's for you all to.
You're welcome to stay if you want. but yeah, you don't have to present anything.
Okay. I'll hang out. Well, maybe something useful.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Sean to cover our next agenda item, the discussion of community engagement for climate action plan and opportunities to volunteer.
Great. Thank you, Jen. So as part of our climate action planning process, we need to socialize the plan with the public so they can understand and know what's part of the plan. And then we also need to get their feedback. And so we're going to be doing a survey that's going to be coming out soon. But besides that, we need to be able to get it out to the community and make sure that all corners of the community are considered. And so as part of that, we've worked with KLA to develop a communications and community engagement strategy. And as I sent over, I should actually just share my screen so it's a little bit easier for everyone to get the full picture. But I sent over a snippet of that community engagement strategy to show the target audiences that we've identified, and these groups are targeted for a specific reason outside of the general population that we're trying to reach. We identified these groups as folks that might historically not have been part of the process and need to be targeted specifically to make sure that we're engaging them and getting their feedback. Whoops. Okay, are you still able to see target audiences?
The full document? It's a target audience, rationale.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you could see it because my screen just switched over for a second. So, okay. And so, as you can see, youth up to 25, just because that's about a fifth of our population. Seniors aren't always digitally connected, so they might not just be seeing our website or social media. So we need to do more targeted outreach to them. Caretakers of school-aged children. We just know that in a divided world, talking about Jen and school pickup and busy lives, we figured that this would be a good population to tap into because they are a pretty significant population size in Easton, and getting them with that divided attention is tough. So trying to meet them where they're at the community events or locations that they'd be at, is something that we're going to try to take on as part of this strategy. And then residents on fixed and low incomes, they're definitely more vulnerable to the climate hazards and getting their input as we think about a resilient community moving forward. We want to make sure that we're considering them and that there are opportunity to participate is included as we continue to develop the plan. And then local businesses, they have a pretty wide-ranging impact as it relates to implementing a lot of these goals and actions. And so we want to make sure that they have a seat at the table and are able to participate and add in, because our small and large businesses alike are a big part of this community. So part of that is going to include a roundtable with local businesses to talk through barriers and be able to figure out solutions that work for everyone. And then you'll see that we went through a couple of different engagement tactics and how we're going to reach each audience, general, youth. I won't go through each of them, but we thought about how we're actually going to reach them and what exactly we're going to reach them with. What are we going to educate them with? And from these this table here, we developed the schedule for reaching out to each of these groups and who is going to be reached by each action. And part of this agenda item is going to be an ask, because some of these are KLA, some of them are us on the town staff side, but some of them will require a little extra input from members of CCAP to be able to make possible. There are a couple of them, including the partnering with the COA on a senior focused event. If we could have a couple of CCAP members to join us for some sort of a coffee hour or a presentation or some sort of event where we can connect them to resources and maybe get their feedback as we're going through the survey process. Something in that vein, scheduled for about May. Also looking to, if for anyone that'd be interested in joining us for a climate youth workshop with the high school green club. I think that would be really impactful to have members of an appointed committee in town be able to talk to kids at OA about climate change. And I know that there is an interest there. I believe it might have been Kathy that has a connection to the Green Club, so that might be a good connecting point to get a couple of members in there for something like that. And then lastly, we'll need some folks from CCAP to join. Hannah, who was at our first advisory group meeting last month in December, she's going to be joining us to do a table at the Art and Cultural Festival, which is part of the broader tricentennial event that's happening this year. This should draw in a pretty large number of residents, so it'd be great if we had a couple of CCAP members that would be willing to join that as well, and that's April 26th. And then I guess lastly, outside of events, we're also going to be looking for some members of CCAP to give us, if they know folks that fit into that caretaker group, we would like to see if we could do a virtual, or we're going to be doing a virtual focus group with about 10 caretakers to understand barriers and to gather more information as we develop and finalize our plan. So anyone that thinks that they know at least a handful of caretakers that could fit into that group, that would be a huge help. I guess I'm not looking for commitments right now, but I wanted to socialize the idea that we'll be needing input from members and support from members as we start going through the community engagement process. So without requiring anyone to just commit at this time, does anyone feel comfortable, or would they need any additional information to be able to feel comfortable to participate in any of the handful of events that I had mentioned?
I'd be comfortable with any of them. Obviously can't do all of them, but especially if we have some prep on what we'd be covering as we're manning tables or presenting or participating.
Definitely. I think KLA had mentioned that they have, for example, the Climate Youth Workshop, they have a model from another community that they had that they could go off of. And there is an event toolkit that would help be able to frame any number of these events. And so we would definitely not have folks go in blinded by what they'd be expected to know or communicate out. So we would definitely prep whoever was willing to volunteer to make sure they were prepared for each of those events.
Yeah, I'll throw my hat in.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
well, I don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying happy to go to Any type of event, volunteer, talk to
Okay.
people.
Great. Yeah. No, this is, if we can just get folks to be like, hey, can you take the survey, or here's the fact sheet that we're about to, we're in the process of developing a fact sheet now. It's close to being finalized, and things like that, being able to share those types of bite-sized talking points with the community, and pointing them to resources, and even just letting them know that the town is going through a climate action planning process is the intent of these community engagement tactics. So it's great to hear that there's a number of members that are willing to do this. In the next month or two, we'll start developing what those specific events are like. I mean, I know that the Art and Cultural Festival is a date and time certain. So if you're interested in that, you can let me know. But I will send a call out to members that are willing to volunteer to make sure that we have some representation. Just because there's so many of us, that I think that we can spread the wealth among everyone that's interested in volunteering.
Yeah, we should also table at the Spring Farm Festival at the NRT.
Sure, yeah. Do you happen to know what
May.
In May?
It's usually the first weekend of May.
Okay.
And I know some folks in this group have done tabling, and for anybody who hasn't, it actually is fun talking to members of the community and stuff. So I'm going to put a plug
is.
in the experience. I'm always pleasantly surprised by how much fun I actually have doing it.
Yeah, we did it for the MBTA Communities Act.
Oh yeah.
That was interesting.
So I know some of the things you've put on here, the ESC was planning on tabling, and I can just bop and forth, back and forth between the two, but there's some synergy there also because of the the mission there to do the outreach. I had some questions with regards to some of the how you notify that the different columns up above.
Yep.
Is that all fully developed, or do you have feedback on those as well, or asking for them, or no? Like,
You know right here.
yeah. So on the next page down, communication engagement tactics, which
Yep.
was it's above the table. I think it's page. I don't have mine up on my other shares.
One right here.
Page 2. Yeah. So, for example, for youth, we have the green things, and Kathy, I'd love to know who you got for green, because we've been trying forever with ESC to get in touch with the schools to get engaged. But the school elected officials, the kids that are in an office, they're often really interested in these topics. And it might be a way to also partner with them, as well as, I know OO used to have a newspaper. I don't know if they still have a newspaper, but those are some other ways to reach the general audience for youth. And in terms of youth development, quite often your middle schoolers are very gung-ho. They might be a little younger than you think, but they actually get a lot of stuff done because they're just sort of at that age there. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. And then on the rest of the youth was, sometimes if we have any civics going on or history teachers or anything like that, a lot of times these messages come through in those veins as well, as rather than just the sciences. And then in the arts, you were targeting the art festival kind of thing, but a lot of times in the arts, those teachers are looking for sustainable arts and that kind of thing. So I just thought
That's awesome. Yeah, I made a couple of notes here. I think that's great. This isn't a hard and fast. These were just what we had come up. I think there were a handful of us that had weighed in, Jen and myself and Dottie Fulgenetti as well. And that's what we came up with. But I think it's great if we can add these other. I really like the idea of the school elected officials in each building being able to weigh in, using them as an inroad. So I've made a note of that.
Sean, do you
Sean,
want?
I took notes on the PDF that you sent, so I'll shoot them over with some of the other pieces there.
Sure.
And then I'm just going to be quiet, because after this, I'm just saying I've been really good, because I am in the seniors group. Like Bill, you gave your age away. I'm not going to, but there. Anyway, a lot of senior people go to the Y. It is, they table in front of the entry point there. It's a place for them to socialize. And so I would really encourage you to try to reach our seniors at the YMCA.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Sean, do we want to open the whole committee to provide feedback and just send it to you, and we can integrate whatever feedback is workable?
Sure. Yeah.
I can collect it too if that helps. Just let me know what works best.
Okay.
We can decide that part offline, like tomorrow or something.
Sure. Yeah, we could give like a week or so for folks to look through and see if there's anything missing. I guess everyone already has the document, but I could send it again and just say in the next week if there's anything that's missing off of the specific, particularly on the communications and engagement tactics. Those ones would be helpful.
Great. Anything else, Sean, or any questions from anybody about what was just covered? Okay, if not, we can move on to our fourth item. Do you want to cover anything else, Sean? Are you good?
No, we're good. Yep.
Okay, great. So our fourth item is a discussion and vote on the removal of CCAP member Lauren Model for inactivity. So Lauren had she had applied and was added to the group, but had never hasn't been responsive, unfortunately, and did not complete ethics training. So we, as a housekeeping mechanism, we should just remove her from the committee, and basically a housekeeping opportunity to make sure our situation's clean. So, if anybody has any questions about this before I proceed with explaining how we do this. So it's a roll call vote, and each person will say your name, your last name, and model if you are in support of this. So I'll start. So Stacy Model. Oh, yes, Sean.
I'll make a motion. So I'll just make.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'll make a motion to recommend removal. Recommend to the select board removal of Lauren Model from the Committee for Climate Action Planning due to inactivity.
Second, Stacy. Oh, second, Kathy. You can have it.
Second, Kid.
So it's roll call vote. So Stacy Model.
Dugan Model.
Dugan.
Sorry.
Carolyn.
Model.
Say your first name and then.
Oh, McCaffrey.
Sorry, yeah, last name.
McCaffrey, and yes, I agree with whatever the motion is. You want me to say?
Kathy.
Kid. Model.
John.
Santillo Model.
And Bill.
Bill Humphrey Model.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that. The next item is approval of the December 9th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comment before we go on? I'll take a motion.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Okay, great. So roll call vote. So we'll go through Stacy, yes. Kathy?
I.
Bill?
Humphrey, aye.
John?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Carolyn?
McCaffrey, aye.
Okay. And the last item is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Wow, that was really fast, everybody.
Everyone jumps at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
So Kathy can take ownership on that one.
All right, so we can just go around and I'll reverse the order. So McCafferty?
Yes.
Dugan?
Yes.
Santillo?
Yes.
Humphrey?
Yes, sorry about my dog in the background.
No worries, didn't even notice. Kid?
Aye.
And Stacy, yes. So thanks, everybody. I think we made it through relatively painlessly for what we covered. So thank you all for your continued effort on this. And I think we're making great progress. And see you all on the 25th, but we'll be sending some emails to follow up
Thanks.
in advance. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Night.